So I was wrong. Very, very wrong. Dagestani privilege does not exist in the UFC. Okay, I've spent time and time again. I have talked about how the Dagestani privilege has gotten people like Khamzat Chimaev, Ikram Aliskerov, Islam Makhachev into big fights, title fights, main events that they don't necessarily deserve. And now all of that is washed away. All of my hard work has been washed away by this announcement of UFC 307 in Salt Lake City. Now, I just did a video about this card this week about it potentially being Tom Aspinall versus Alex Pereira as the main event, but that I really thought it was going to be Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Asakura or Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena as the main event. But here we are. The most unexpected main event of 2024, Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree. Okay, and there's a lot to talk about, guys. So stick around to hear what I have to say about the announcement of UFC 307, because there's a lot of other fights on there as well. I'm Wyatt. This is Fight Society. Stand 'em Up, which is a Instagram and Twitter MMA page. This fight really had to be next. I love Pereira versus Rountree, but Ankalaev has been done dirty way too many times at this point. Dagestani privilege seems not to be a thing anymore. This I actually agree with, because if we look at the UFC rankings right here, we have Alex Pereira, champ, and then all the way down, we have Khalil Rountree, number 8. That's who's getting the title shot. You have Volkan Oezdemir, who's coming off of a win over Johnny Walker. You have Nikita Krylov, hasn't fought in a while. Rakic, Blachowicz, Jamahal Hill, Magomed Ankalaev, Yuri Prohaska. The only people that for sure were not going to get a fight with Alex Pereira, in my opinion, was Jamahal, Yuri, or Oezdemir. But outside of that, I could have seen it, and Rakic coming off of a loss, but I think it should have been Ankalaev. Could have been Blachowicz, maybe, or Rountree. I mean, I understand why we're here, because they're not going to move Alex Pereira up to heavyweight. They want him to run this division for quite some time before they have him fight Jones, Aspinall, whoever, because from what Dana White says, he's never going to fight John Jones. So first off, something that I wanted to take a look at is, sorry, the picture's a little bit fuzzy, but we have Magomed Ankalaev, who very well should be fighting for the belt right now. He is going up against Alexander Rakic at UFC 308, which is the same month. Okay, guys, this is something to consider. October 5th, October 26th. Pereira Rountree is happening before Ankalaev Rakic. This is not a timeline thing. Ankalaev's not hurt. Pereira doesn't need more time. I was saying in my video earlier this week that they were going to keep Pereira out until 2025 or December at the soonest if McGregor Chandler doesn't happen. But now we have these two fights. That just shows you that the UFC does not want Magomed Ankalaev fighting for a belt. Plain and simple. Because if we look at their sure dogs, so first off, we have Khalil Rountree, and his previous wins are August of 2023, almost exactly a year ago today, almost a year. Chris Daukaus, who's not in the UFC anymore, and Anthony Smith, who took the fight on short notice because of Murzakanov pulling out. Then he was going to fight Jamahal Hill as the co-main event to McGregor Chandler at UFC 303, and then basically pulled himself off of that card by ingesting a banned substance. Basically, he was like using performance-enhancing drugs, whether to his knowledge or not, but he was doing that. And now he's getting a title fight without getting a win in between. Literally, fight canceled because of a drug testing issue, title fight. And then if you look at Ankalaev, his last few fights is Anthony Smith 2+ years ago, and then draw for the belt, no contest where he should have gotten DQ'd, and Johnny Walker win, which is not super impressive. But Johnny Walker did beat Khalil Rountree, and now he has to fight Rakic. I understand that the UFC doesn't want Ankalaev to be champ, or at least it seems that way. So the Dagestani privilege is over. That's what I've been trying to get at. The Dagestani privilege no longer exists. My hard work battling Dagestani privilege in the UFC has come full circle. It came through. It doesn't exist anymore. Now we have Americans getting undeserved title shots. Let's go. But not every American's happy about this. As you can see, Jamahal Hill chimed in and said, "Can't believe what I just saw announced." So a guy pulls out of a contender fight because of a failed drug test for banned substances and gets rewarded a title shot. This is terrible for the sport and makes the rankings completely pointless. Well, newsflash, Jamahal Hill, the UFC rankings were pointless anyway, okay? They don't mean anything. But no, I just made this same point earlier in this video. I do agree with what Jamahal Hill's saying here. Should have been Magomed Ankalaev. But I mean, I'm not complaining about these cards we're getting now. These pay-per-views, I told you guys, we're in this era of banger pay-per-views, week fight nights. Like if you look at 307 packed, 308 packed, 309 is going to be Madison Square Garden, stacked. 310 is going to be Vegas, possibly McGregor Chandler. Good stuff to close out the year. I think the Sphere is going to under-deliver a little bit, but aside from that, banger pay-per-views coming up the rest of the year. Okay, now that we've talked about the actual main event announcement, let's get into the card itself. First off, we have Pereira versus Rountree. I'm very obviously going to pick Alex Pereira to win this fight. I think he's going to absolutely smoke Khalil Rountree. I think it's going to be sad how badly he smokes Khalil Rountree. I think it's going to be a good example as to why usually only top 5 guys get title shots, because I don't think Khalil Rountree is a top 5 light heavyweight. I think he's going to get absolutely outclassed and bullied in there. Size-wise, skill-wise, all of that. But at the end of the day, this is MMA. Everything's an accident. Everything's a mistake at the end of the day. Strikes land where somebody makes a mistake, all that stuff. You know, the typical thing, craziest sport on earth. Khalil Rountree could win, but I think Pereira is probably going to be about a minus 600 favorite going into this fight. There are some other amazing fights on this card. We move down from there to the co-main event, which I thought was going to be the main event. I thought Salt Lake City was going to get stuck with a brutal main event. Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena for the women's bantamweight title. As I mentioned, also on this card, Ketlin Vieira and Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison versus Vieira is a contingency fight / #1 contenders fight for the bantamweight title. Their plan is whoever wins this fight, I think the UFC would probably hope for Juliana Pena to win this fight because she's talked a lot of shit about Kayla Harrison. But the dream for the UFC is Kayla Harrison beats Vieira, fights the winner of this fight. I think in a dream scenario for the UFC, it's Pena versus Harrison. I think that gives them a pay-per-view main event. Maybe. Pena and Pennington's going to be a boring fight. It's basically just to get on to making Kayla Harrison the title contender and eventual champ. But we move on from there. Another amazing fight announced on the card, which I didn't think was going to happen. I was expecting Wonderboy Ian Gary or Wonderboy MVP. But here we are. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson against Joaquin Buckley, banger fight. I'm super excited. Buckley's going to shoot power double legs the same way he did on Nursultan Ruzaboyev. He's going to win by decision, in my opinion. But Wonderboy could style on him. Wonderboy could land a head kick, something like that. Obviously, it is Wonderboy, but Joaquin Buckley's going to win that fight by decision, in my opinion. Come back around during fight week for 307, and I'll do full breakdowns and predictions. But we move on from there. Jose Aldo versus Mario Batista, number 9 versus number 12 in the bantamweight division. Batista's nasty. I don't think he's going to let the moment get to him the same way that Jonathan Martinez did at UFC 301 against Jose Aldo. But I still think Jose Aldo's got it. I think he's going to cook these young up-and-coming contenders like Batista, like Martinez, guys like that. And I think that Jose Aldo's going to win, and then he deserves a fight with top 5 guy, Figueiredo, something like that. Do a fight night in Brazil, Figueiredo versus Aldo, if Aldo wins this fight. Seems like fun to me. And then down from there, we have number 10 ranked middleweight Roman Dolidze and number 15 ranked welterweight moving back up to 85 again after beating Mikhail Olajasic at UFC 302. Kevin Holland going up against Roman Dolidze. We're going to see just how good Kevin Holland's wrestling has gotten, because Dolidze is not going to do shit on the feet. He's going to try to grapple. He's going to try to get a sub or decision win via top control against Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland could catch him, but I'm definitely going to lean towards Dolidze in that fight. Again, we've talked about this. Kevin Holland doesn't take his career seriously enough, in my opinion, to be a world champion or beat the elite guys, but he is a big enough name to where he makes good money fighting. So, you know, big, fun matchups, pay-per-view main cards. He gets his whatever $250,000 purse, whatever he gets. And yeah, he's going to do that for the next few years until he retires. But I am such a big Kevin Holland fan, but I have completely let the ship sail in terms of Kevin Holland as a title contender. At one point, there was hopes for me, especially when he moved down to 170. I thought he was looking like a world beater, but he just doesn't take fighting seriously enough, in my opinion. And I'm a huge fan of him. But in my opinion, he's just not, he doesn't have that sense of urgency when the fight gets tough. He gets frustrated and checks out. He's not a quitter in the way that we're like, he's broken and he looks like Edson Barbosa against Khabib, where he just wants to get out of there. He just looks like he's frustrated and kind of like doesn't care anymore. It's not like, oh, please get me out, but he's kind of just like, fuck this shit, man, whatever, you know? So down from there, we have amazing featherweight fight. Aljamain Sterling versus Movsar Evloev at featherweight, number 8 versus number 6. Evloev is undefeated in the UFC, 7-0, all decisions. The UFC does not want him to get a title shot. So they throw a very competent grappler at him in Aljo, former bantamweight champ, because they definitely didn't want Aljo to be champ at bantamweight, and they definitely don't want him to be champ at featherweight. But I think they'd much rather prefer him with something of a personality, something to sell, as opposed to Movsar Evloev, decision machine, never has any subs, 7-0, all decisions in the UFC, no personality, kind of speaks English. And this is basically Aljo doing the UFC a favor and hopefully knocking Evloev down the rankings a little bit so that they don't have to put him up against a Volk or a Topuria or a Holloway, like one of these big matchups. The best, even actually, you know what? Even if Movsar wins this fight, they're going to give him Diego Lopes after Diego Lopes whoops on Brian Ortega at the Sphere, in my opinion. Super exciting fight, title eliminator, not a #1 contenders fight, but winner of this fight will get a top 5 guy, probably Diego Lopez. Sorry, you guys always get on me for that. And then the only other fight that's announced for the card so far is Ketlin Vieira versus Kayla Harrison. Again, #1 contenders fight for the co-main event. They want Kayla Harrison to win and hopefully fight Pena. And overall, fantastic card. We got Pereira Rountree, one-sided as hell, Pennington versus Pena, Thompson Buckley, Aldo Bautista, Roman Dolidze, Kevin Holland, Aljamain Sterling, Movsar Evloev, and Ketlin Vieira versus Kayla Harrison. Fantastic card. UFC really came through with this one. They cooked. And so we're getting the Sphere, which I think is going to under-deliver, but I think the main event will at least be something worth watching when Merab gets KO'd via left hook. But 307 cooking, 308 cooking. Topuria versus Holloway, such a crazy card. 309's Madison Square Garden. Jones versus Stipe, banger card. And then you have December is probably Chandler and McGregor. So, and if that doesn't work out, they probably throw Pereira in there again. So we'll see what happens, guys. I'm super excited for this card. Let me know your thoughts on this main event, Pereira versus Rountree, and Ankalaev not getting the title shot. Also, let me know your thoughts on the card as a whole. I think it looks like an amazing pay-per-view. Little bit bummed that it's at altitude, so maybe this could affect some people. But all in all, fantastic card. Super excited for it. A little bit of something for me to be positive about with card announcements because they've been so shit recently with the Sphere and then 305 being tomorrow. 305 is tomorrow, and that's a weak-ish main card, but 307 and 308, amazing pay-per-view cards I'm super pumped for. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Hey guys, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. If you're interested in supporting the channel further, then become a channel member today for access to members-only live streams, vlogs, and some other members' perks. So click the link in the description down below or the join button on our channel homepage to become a member today. If you're interested in some non-MMA content from me, go check out my personal channel, Wyatt's World, and go check out my weekly comedy podcast, What's Up Bro, with Wyatt and Bo. Both of those are linked in the description down below. Go watch this suggested video, and we'll see you next time.